Hello and welcome to Devlog 0 of this game. Because this is the very first devlog I'm gonna do, I'm gonna give you a small introduction and also an overview over the game and what I've already done. It all began with a small idea. Going up until you reach the end, in my opinion, is pretty popular, and grappling is also pretty cool. Merge them both and you get something cool and popular. With this at hand, I started making the game, thinking of it as a small 2-month project or so. What I didn't realize is that game dev is a lot more work than expected. Making 3D models, animating them, programming, texturing already is a bunch of work, but like making everything work without bugs is just at times impossible. As a result, my expected 2-month journey of game development is now approaching the 6-month mark, and I'm not even close to being done. But enough of the crying part. Let's start game deving. So the first thing I did was, of course, implementing the grappling mechanic. And I also made some pretty simple 3D stuff like grass and trees. Another thing I also made pretty early on is a loot drop with player upgrades on it. The player has the option to either get the upgrade from the loot drop and risk falling, or just ignore the loot drop and progress without it. And just in case you're wondering why the loot drop looks like a pummel, I wanted the shooting device to be a pummel at first, but I decided on a more versatile approach like a crossbow. So with the loot drop in place, there's already a bunch of decision making going on with just that. But I want more. Therefore, the next things I implemented were items like this fruit, from which even I don't know the name of, or those berries on the strange looking bush. Those items have similar effects to the ones on the loot drops, but are weaker or not permanent. You can just find those plants on floating islands and other surroundings. Speaking of surroundings, elaborating on them was the next thing I did. Because my game revolves around going up, I needed a way to do that. And what better way is there than floating islands? So I implemented them. There are different versions of floating islands. Some have lava or water on them, and yes, you can swim in it. I made a really complicated swimming mechanic, but I have a feeling that I could have done it easier. Then you have other islands that can move around, and yeah, I ran into a problem there. If things I grapple onto move around, but the grappling point is still the same, there's a big problem. The island moves away from the grappling point, and I am floating in the air or holding onto nothing. So I had to come up with a solution. Getting the island every tenth of a second or so and updating the position of the grappling point that way. Of course, I also had to consider the position of the grappling point in relation to the island's center, but after some trial and error, everything worked. My grappling hook could now also stick to moving objects. But hey, what is another thing moving? Enemies. So I made one of those. And you probably noticed it, but the first enemy is also my profile picture. I don't know why, I just didn't have another, so I made this. I didn't make another enemy until much later in development because I wanted to concentrate on item variety and level design a bit more. I designed chests with different rarities that can be found across the islands. Those chests contain items that boost stats. You can see those stats in the pause menu I made. I made various obstacles like this tentacle that throws you off the island, or this landmine that can give you a height boost in return for life force. And just in case you're wondering, there's also a jump pad that doesn't require life force. I also made items that don't boost stats, but instead are a one-time use thing like this TNT barrel or a teleporting device. In terms of level design, I put a lot of effort into physics. I wanted the player to be able to interact with the world by using his grappling hook. There are barrels you can pull towards you. Those barrels can also be moved by the jump pad or other things that influence physics. There are also floating islands that you can bring with you, and you can also ride on top of them by pulling them towards you. This was totally intended, by the way. Because of that, I made it so you can take them with you how far you want, but if you're standing on top of them, you can only move them by a certain amount. And you may have noticed in the last clip the quality was a bit lower. The reason is that I have also already implemented a simple main menu with graphic and sound settings. Speaking of user interface, I think all of you watching probably already saw the UI I was going for in the game. There are health and stamina bars, a simple inventory system, and a display for the height of the player. Later I want the player to be able to see their friends' height stats too, if they are playing together. There's also some weapon specific UI which I will show you later on. Additionally, there are effects when you are out of stamina, near death, smoked a joint, or drank a beer. And yes, those are items I implemented. The joint, for example, gives infinite stamina. I also made some UI for when the player dies. I'm with you, little bro. So, with that off the board, we are near the end of the current game state. The most recent things I implemented are more crossbow variations like this one that shoots exploding projectiles on enemies, or this one that gives you the ability to dash up the more kills you get. It's those crossbows that need the additional UI slot and also add additional UI, like this one on the skull one. I also made one new flying enemy, which is a drone that shoots at you. In the future, I plan to add more enemies, maybe a boss enemy. I also plan to implement the one multiplayer element I talked about earlier, where you can see the heights of the friends that you are playing with additionally to your own height. I also want to make a competitive mode or leaderboard where if you were good enough, your name is displayed along with your score. But I think this wraps up the video. I hope you enjoyed it and are there when the next devlog drops. It won't be as fast paced and full as this one, and I'm gonna go more into detail. I couldn't really do that here because I had to squeeze a lot of content into a short video, so yeah, my apologies. If you like this kind of content, it would be nice of you to consider subscribing. And I think that was it for me. Good evening.